Are you worried about your website going down, or maybe your information being held for ransom because your company's been hacked? Or maybe an employee opens up an email they're not supposed to, and now all of a sudden you've got a virus in your company that you don't know what to do with. Well, luckily today we've got a subject matter expert that is going to help us learn how to address these issues and reduce your liability, but most importantly, keep your company safe. Today my guest is Bones Ijeoma, who is the founder and CEO of two companies, AllSafe IT and AllSafe Intelligence. I'm also excited to have Bones here today because we're both members of Entrepreneurs Organization, EO Los Angeles, so it's a real treat to have Bones join me today. So welcome, Bones. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your companies that you run and what you do?
All right, Ara, thank you. Happy to be here. So AllSafe IT is a managed IT company, and basically what we do is provide outsourced IT services for companies that don't have an internal IT department. So we serve as their outsourced IT company. Okay. And AllSafe Intelligence is a company that helps to complement our IT services, where we provide AI for companies that just really don't know how to implement AI. They don't really know how to use AI as what it is, which is a force multiplier to help them get to the next stage in their business and get ahead of their competition. So both of these companies together, we work with small to medium-sized businesses to help take them to the next level.
So, Bones, you've got a very interesting background. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. You have some experience at Accenture. Tell us a little about how you got into IT and how did you end up starting your own business?
So, I started at a very young age. When I was 15, I bought my first compact computer.
I remember the compact computer, yeah.
Yep. Used that to help my dad, who had an accounting firm, do desktop publishing for his accounting company. So
we're an accounting firm.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we did advertising. We created posters. And, at a very young age, I definitely had a knack for technology and also a knack for how to help communicate marketing material to customers to draw need. So from there, I went into college, got a degree in computer engineering, and worked a few years as a database developer for Marriott Hospitality. Yeah. Quickly learned that development wasn't my future goal in my career path, and then went back to school and got an MBA and started working in consulting. And so consulting was a great eye-opener for me because now I've got this amazing technical background and experience, and I'm able to tie that in with what we call business outcomes in the consulting world. So with those business outcomes, we're looking at the business structure, we're looking at the DNA of a business so that we can figure out exactly how do they generate revenue, how do they service the customers that they bring in ongoing, and how do they keep those customers happy from a customer service standpoint going forward. So what I realize is that there's a big discrepancy between what enterprise and mid-market companies are doing on the technology side, and I found a gap where I can apply those same methods to the small business environment. And that was really the start of my first company, which is called Bare Bones Networking. And so after starting Bare Bones Networking, we basically started doing IT for airport, retail, and concessions. We started at LAX. We then went to Las Vegas Airport. We went to Dulles and Reagan in DC.
Wow.
And then also Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. So that's been a big vertical of mine, and we are continuing to grow in that space.
That's amazing. That's actually the reason why I wanted you to come on this podcast is because many of our viewers, many of our clients are small business owners, and this IT is a really big need for them. And it was great. It's great to have you so that way you can talk about the nuances of IT and some of the risks associated with it. And we're going to dive deep into that, into this podcast.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. So let's start with the basics. What is managed IT, and why should a business owner care what managed IT is?
Yeah, so a managed IT is a company that you outsource your IT services to, and they take care of your regular day-to-day maintenance on your machines, they take care of your cybersecurity, and a managed IT company will also serve as an advisor from a technology standpoint in order for you to make strategic decisions about your technology for your business.
So under the managed IT umbrella, does it also include onboarding and offboarding employees? Because I'll tell you from experience, that takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So onboarding and offboarding employees are what we call at AllSafe the baseline recipes that we have for every company. And so with that, we have a very defined process for bringing on a new employee. We make sure they're set up with the right security permissions. We don't want someone in customer serving getting access to the accounting folder or just the wrong access, basically. So we want to make sure they've got that, and then we also want to make sure that when we offboard someone, that from a security standpoint, the controls are in place to remove them from the systems that they should no longer have access to. So certainly the onboarding, offboarding of users is important. The other part is really kind of the other way to look at a managed IT company is as an insurance policy, right? So we want to make sure you've got security in place and you've got that security set up correctly, and you have someone that's qualified that's overseeing the ongoing maintenance of that environment. So that's the other big thing that a managed IT company does.
So under the umbrella of managed IT, what are some of the other services that are included with that in addition to kind of what you already described?
Yeah, so I think the other big one is what we call the vCIO.
vCIO?
Yeah, it's a virtual chief information officer.
So
it's definitely something important though, right?
Uh-huh.
And the chief information officer is responsible for overseeing the internal IT for an organization, but not just the day-to-day maintenance, but also the strategic direction of the IT as well. So figuring out what kinds of systems do we need to put in place to align with where the company wants to go in the future. So a lot of times we walk into an organization, they're like, we've got a 50% growth from the sales standpoint in order to reach our quarterly goals or annual goals. And a CIO would say, yes, that's your sales goal, but our operations and our systems can't support that kind of growth. So what we do is we go in and we figure out what are the things we need to implement, what are the processes, what are the systems, what are the solutions we need to put in so that we can support that kind of acceleration.
And then what's the integration with like software, existing software that companies use, like CRM? Because CRM is like the backbone of most companies. How do you integrate what you do with the company's CRM?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of it is, and this goes back to my consulting roots, we always start with business process and business flow. So first we want to understand the moment that a customer knows about you, how does that customer get from a marketing qualified lead to an actual sales qualified lead to a customer that you close, and we want to map that entire process out, and the CRM is a part of that.
Right.
So we want to make sure that your marketing team is integrated well with your sales team, is integrated well with your operations team, and so what we do is help to build those integrations. And I'll talk a little bit more about AI and automation, which is a big part of what the AllSafe intelligence part of the business does as well. But that team will help to integrate all those systems and make them work.
So I have an interesting question I think a lot of business owners will want to know is there's Google Workspaces and there's Microsoft 365. How do you decide which one you should be doing, whether if you're a new business or maybe you got 10 employees or 200 employees?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the answer is a bit nuanced, but generally speaking, Google Workspaces is great for a smaller company that needs access to email, needs something that's very straightforward and efficient, something cloud-based, and also has a great user interface that people can pick up very easily. We found for our customers that are on the smaller side, Google Workspaces is also an amazing cost-effective solution. One of the other things I love about Google is their Google Gemini is integrated into Google Workspaces, and I see that being the future from a SMB standpoint so that they can leverage AI into their Google Space environment.
So define SMB for our viewers.
Small to medium-sized businesses. Yes.
And doesn't Microsoft 365 also include, is it
Copilot?
Yeah,
yep.
So that's also included with that, right?
Yeah, it's also included. So on the flip side, Microsoft Outlook and Office 365 is great for a company that really plans to scale and plans to sort of integrate more advanced IT solutions, more security, has more regulatory requirements, things like that. Microsoft is a much better solution because you can set up things that you just can't quite do well in Google yet. So for example, shared mailboxes and various other types of tech, shared calendars, things like that are handled really well in the Microsoft ecosystem.
I mean, I think Microsoft dominates the corporate world.
That's right.
I don't know what percentage, probably high, 80-90% of corporates, companies use Microsoft Office 365 or something.
That's right.
Not Office 365, but Microsoft 365.
Definitely. And the other part is when I'm looking at what technology to implement, I also want to understand what's really used out there. And if most people are using Microsoft, that means when you bring on a new employee, they're going to be able to get up to speed a lot faster and more efficiently because they're already used to using Outlook.
Exactly.
So now you've got someone that's using Outlook and you don't want to have to retrain them on Microsoft Google Workspaces.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
The other thing I can recommend as just a tip for small businesses that maybe are on the smaller side and just aren't ready for a managed IT company yet, I think AI is an incredible solution to use to help you solve some some of those technical problems. So you can take a screenshot of any error message or any window, you can paste that into ChatGPT, you can say, what does this mean? What do I do? How do I handle this situation? And AI will immediately give you an answer, and you can have a dialogue in order to solve that. So that's my recommendation for that small business that just really can't afford managed IT, but is looking to really solve some of their own problems.
So that's a really good tip, Bones, because we utilize that feature when we get an error message in our tax software. We take a screenshot, we put it into ChatGPT or an AI platform and see what it gives us. And most of the time, it puts us down the right path. It fixes the error message. But the other 15, 20% of the time, we have to reach out to the software vendor and say, hey, we're getting this error message. How can you fix it for us?
That's great.
So can you walk me through how you work with new clients and what does that onboarding process look like?
Oh, that's a great question. From an ethos standpoint at AllSafe, we feel that the experience that you have with the company during the onboarding is the experience that you're going to have throughout the rest of that relationship that you have with the customer. So we take the onboarding very seriously. We've got a 58-step onboarding process.
Wow.
It continues to grow. And we've basically split the onboarding process into a few phases. So obviously pre-onboarding, we're having conversations with customers. We want to figure out which of our services are right for them.
Yeah.
Once we pick the right services that are a good fit, we do an onboarding, and we always start with what we call the getting to know you part of the process, because what we know is that we're not supporting technology, we're supporting people. And the more
That's
we
a good
focus
tagline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely one we should consider. But when we're supporting people, we want to make sure that the people are we understand what they use, we understand the software that they use, we want to understand how they use that software, we want to understand typical issues that they experience with their software, and we put that into a database.
Okay.
And AI has made that even more incredible, because now we have the ability to mine that database much easier, to look for patterns and to be more proactive with the way that we provide support. So then once we understand the people and the technology, then we move into the documentation. We want to make sure we gather all of that information, put it into our documentation, make sure the documentation is easy, readable, understandable for our technicians, so that anyone that you call at AllSafe knows who you are, what you do, what software you use, how you use it, and how do we fix those issues faster. And then we go into what we call the optimization phase of the process, where we want to make sure that we are fixing all of the things that you had previously and establishing what we call best practices. Okay. So we want to make sure you've got user accounts, maybe employees that have left a long time ago. Let's turn those accounts off. Let's make sure that we've got an inventory of all of the IT systems that you have in your company. So from an accounting standpoint, you understand we might want to make sure we're amortizing all of that over the course of time, but you need to know it's there.
Right.
And so that's a big part of what we go in and do for the customer. And then from there, we just do what we call the ongoing optimization. And that optimization and business transformation process is, okay, we understand your company. How do we make technology a force multiplier? How do we make technology something that's going to help accelerate your business? So I feel that if you're looking at your IT as a liability instead of an asset, that's also a good indication that you either don't have the right IT company, or you need an IT company to help you sort of move that forward. The idea is that your tech should be a force multiplier to help grow your business and take you to that next level.
I mean, I love that term, force multiplier. We're going to hopefully circle back to that later on.
Sure.
But tell me about how long the onboarding process is, because I think a client is going to say, like, if you have to go to the optimization and the the data gathering, is it going to take 6 weeks, 6 months? How long does it take for the onboarding?
We do a 2-week onboarding process.
2 weeks is amazing. That's incredible.
Yep, we've got it really efficient, and obviously now we're using automation, and we're using AI, and that's making the process even more efficient. So we've been able to shrink the timeline, and from an optimization, that can depend on other variables and change management and things like that.
So what are the top 3 warning signs that your business and your business data is at risk?
The big one we see is a hack, either a successful hack or an attempted hack. Your in-house or your outsourced company should be able to tell you exactly how that hack occurred and the mitigations that they've put in place to make sure that it won't happen again. So a lot of times what I recommend business owners is to make sure that you at least seek out a third-party opinion anytime there's a hack, so that you can make sure that someone else is looking at your controls that you have in place to make sure they're adequate for your business.
So what is the second warning sign that your business or your data is at risk?
Recurring issues. So if you're as a business owner, doing your own IT and you're dealing with the same issues over and over again, that's one sign. And if your current IT company is dealing with those same issues over and over again, we see recurring issues as what we call in IT terms we call it where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So a lot of times we see that these little signs of recurring issues are actually symptoms of a much bigger problem that you can't see. And you need to have someone go in and try to figure out what is the root cause of these recurring issues and really put in a good solution in order for those not to happen again.
Is there a top reoccurring issue that you see on more and more?
Yeah, a big one is all of us as business owners, really everyone that has a business is heavily reliant on internet. We're heavily reliant on wireless. So if you see your internet is going down regularly, your wireless is unreliable and going down regularly, that's a big sign. The other one we see is server outages. So a lot of us still have on-prem servers and those, or even servers in the cloud, and those servers are constantly either slow, offline, not reliable. That has a financial impact to a business that's kind of
data down,
time down, hourly wages that are going away. We want to make sure your systems are up. So a big motto within AllSafe is we want to make downtime obsolete.
I mean, I know that from firsthand. Sometimes our internet service provider, I don't know if it's Comcast or Spectrum, whichever one it is, they'll go down for the entire block. And then our entire office has to go home because there's just no internet. There's no internet connectivity.
Absolutely. So if you're seeing that happen over and over again and it's not the ISP, your ISP is pointing fingers at you, your IT is pointing fingers at the ISP, and there's no resolution, there's something else we need to look at. Yeah, so in that situation, like you mentioned in your experience, what we actually do is we will bring in a third carrier that will provide wireless cellular technology, so it isn't running along the line for cable or fiber, and then we sort of bond that together with your regular connection so that regardless, you've got uptime and availability for that internet connection. And it's constantly running, so it gives us primary and then failover.
That's great. So what is the third warning sign that your business or your data is at risk?
I think it's a lack of in-house expertise. And that's for many business owners that are looking for ways to cut cost, or they just want to do it themselves in order to be able to save money. But what you find is that without that formal training, without the knowledge of how the whole ecosystem works, you can really put yourself at risk. And you see that with large corporations that have very big IT budgets, and they're still having risks and vulnerabilities that are found. There was one hack that happened a few years ago where an entire database was left open, and I think all of our data was made susceptible in that breach. So it's really important, if it's happening to large organizations with trained individuals that are doing it, it's important that a business owner has someone professional to help set it up and configure it.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because we see that on our end, both on the wealth management side and the tax side. So for example, on the tax side, maybe a business owner is just busy. They're not an accounting professional and they're doing their own bookkeeping and their accounting, and we get the financial statements that are just completely wrong. And they may even file tax returns based on those financial statements, and now we've got to go back and fix those. Or sometimes on the wealth management side, we have clients that, or we talk to people where they made a contribution to a Roth IRA and they're not allowed to do it because their income is too high, and now you got to reverse that because the penalties are so high on that.
Makes sense. We're both professional services companies, right? And the idea is that companies hire us so that the owners, the founders, can really focus on what they do best and focus on what they love and focus on the passions that caused them to start that business to begin with.
Yeah. Personally, I'm a big fan of outsourcing myself because I'm an expert in tax and accounting and finance. I'm not an expert in IT. I'm not an expert in all the other areas. And I'd rather hire someone who's an expert in that field so that way I can rest assured that that's being taken care of.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of outsourcing the things that aren't your core business.
Right.
Anything that is not your core business, find an expert that you trust, someone that has your interest in mind, and delegate it to them to take care of that for you.
So Bones, we talked a lot about AllSafe IT, but I know you have another business, AllSafe Intelligence, right? And let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of the top things that a company should consider when they're thinking about implementing AI in their business?
Oh, that's a great one. So the number one thing a business owner should really consider when implementing AI is not to focus on the tools, but focus on the problems within their business that they need to solve. Yeah. And the idea is, prescription without a diagnosis is malpractice, as they say. It's important to first diagnose what are the issues within the company that need to be solved, and then have an expert that understands how AI works, the strengths, the weaknesses of AI, in order to implement the right solutions for your company.
I tell our office that all the time as well. There's so many great softwares out there, so many great AI tools, and when we're trying to implement a new software AI tool, I tell the team, let's focus on what is it that's causing us pain points, what is it that we're trying to solve, and then let's go find the AI or the software that's going to help us solve that problem, versus hearing about an AI tool or software and saying, hey, that sounds great, let's see if we can shoehorn that into our company somehow.
That's right. That's a good point, because the idea is you don't want your team to change what they're doing. Because they have to learn a new process, right? Yeah. You figured out your processes, you've honed those over years of doing this kind of work. The idea is we want to bring in these solutions that help to enhance the current processes that you're doing right now. The second thing is that AI isn't always the answer for your business problems. Yeah. And I think that's kind of counterintuitive for a company that sells AI solutions, but it's important for us to recognize that every business has a certain level of operational maturity, and if you try to put AI into a business that doesn't have operational maturity from a foundational level, it isn't going to work very well.
Right.
It's good, you're bringing AI into chaos. So our goal as consultants is to help to streamline things. I know that's a big part of your business as well. Right. Let's streamline, let's standardize, and then from there we can bring in AI solutions on top of that.
Yeah, I would also add the human touch, right? So
sure.
You don't want to get away from the human touch and the human experience. People still want that human interaction. And while you can use AI to enhance and improve your operations, you don't want to get disconnected from that human touch, because I think that's when people will start kind of pulling away.
Absolutely. Human in the middle of an AI process is very important. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I will recommend is that when you're implementing AI solutions, you want to really try to hone in on what are the solutions out there that are going to have the most impact. So where is your team copying and pasting data from one system to another? Where are you doing manual data entry? And you want to implement solutions that are going to solve those problems. That's going to have the real high impact. Right. And there's a few things you get from that. One is your employees that are the brightest, the best employees that you have are going to be doing less busy work, and they're going to be able to do more work that they value add, and work they're happy about. So really looking at those high impact solutions instead of the $20, $30 tool here, all these little solutions that really don't solve a problem. We want to focus on those solutions that have the high impact, but there's a lot of them that do have low cost.
It also leads to happier employees as well, because they're doing things that maybe directly related to what they were trained to do in school, what they got their degree in, versus, like you said, cutting and pasting from one software to another. If they can get AI to do that, then now they can entirely focus their minds on something that's not rote exercise and more creative or more resourceful and more impactful from what they learned in school.
Absolutely. It helps with retention, it helps with company culture, and it helps with just happier employees in general.
So Bones, I was looking on your website and I heard about infrastructure as a service. Now I've heard about SaaS, software as a service, but I've never heard of infrastructure as a service. What is that about? Like, can you tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. So infrastructure as a service, you're actually quite familiar with. So if you've heard of Amazon Web Services, AWS, or Google Cloud, or you've heard of Microsoft Azure, that's what you would call infrastructure as a service. But that infrastructure is hosted with Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. What we're doing is something a little different at AllSafe, where we actually host that infrastructure within our data center.
Okay.
And then you would move your data from your local environment to that infrastructure in our data center. And companies love that, because you can find sometimes that the Amazons, the Google, and the Microsoft clouds can be very expensive. And so we offer a solution that's more cost effective, is local, and has the ability to scale at a much more cost effective rate ongoing.
So is this related to, for example, I'm going to ask you another question. I don't know if it's kind of related to what you just described. A lot of companies have employees spread out all over the country and all over the world. And when you have that type of dispersion among employees, you have to worry about security, data security, how they're logging into these computers. So is that the same thing as like having a remote desktop type thing when they're
Yeah.
logging into? Is that what it is?
Part of the infrastructure can be that remote desktop environment. So, they can have laptops at home, and instead of working with the data on those laptops, they're remoting into that infrastructure and then just using a desktop that's in the cloud. That's amazing because now you really have less to worry about from a data security standpoint. Everything is in your enclosed data center. It creates an environment that's easier to reach compliance. So if you have SOC 2 compliance requirements, if you have HIPAA compliance requirements, it's a lot easier to maintain that.
And then can you also bifurcate it so that way people in the U.S. have certain types of access and then people outside the U.S. have other types of access, or maybe more limited types of access?
Yeah, and we don't just look at it from a location level. We look at governance from a user level as well. So any user, you can have a manager type role that is offshore, or you can have a manager type role that's US based, right? So we want to look at what access do you want that user to have, and then from there we set up the appropriate permissions for them going forward.
And is it operating system agnostic? So someone could be logging in on Windows, someone can be logging in on Mac, and it doesn't make a difference. It's just cloud-based.
All this infrastructure does run on Microsoft from a platform, so they'll be remoting into a Microsoft computer in the cloud, but they can connect from a tablet, they can connect from a Mac OS, they can connect from a Windows computer or a laptop.
So if they connect from a tablet, like how are they functioning around the mouse and everything?
My iPad has a keyboard and mouse, so it has and you can essentially connect from the tablet to that cloud environment, and it's a Windows workstation that has regular data entry just like any computer.
That's amazing. Is that the same thing as like a VPN as well?
Yeah, so VPN is part of how we secure it. So you've got your tablet, you've got your laptop, you've got your desktop, and you'll use a VPN to connect to this infrastructure that's in the cloud.
So, and VPN is virtual private network, right?
That's correct. Okay. It's great, and it's important. I always recommend that when you're traveling or when you're moving around to different locations that are outside of an office, you want to use a VPN to make sure that you're keeping your data secure.
So, Bones, another thing we have in common is that we both run on EOS. So tell me how EOS has helped your company, and I'll kind of explain how EOS has worked for us as well.
Yeah, EOS has been incredible for our company in that it's helped us to figure out who we are as an organization, figure out what our core values are. It helped us figure out who are the best clients for us to be able to work with, and it helped us to increase our operational maturity as a company as well.
For us, EOS has been a great framework because it helped us clearly identify our organizational chart, identify the right people in the right seat, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and really clearly define our core values. And our core values, for example, are someone who's easygoing, they're focused, they're humbly authentic, and that they're a problem solver. Like, what are some of your core values that you've identified from working with EOS?
Absolutely. So we have 5 core values. So first, we focus on good character. It's important in a position working in IT that we have good people because we have access to data. We want to make sure that the right people are on the other side of that, taking care of our customers' data. The second is we have a need to put in the perfect client experience. So we really want to make sure that our customers are getting a good experience. We're not just focused on the technology, but we're focused on the people.
Right.
The next part is pursuing growth. So technology is constantly changing, every day, and especially with AI, it's accelerated even more. So it's important that we're up to speed and we're up to date on that technology. Next is to create fun. So we want to have an environment where people love to come to work and enjoy what they do. And AI has been a big part of that because we're taking away some of the manual, repetitive work, and we've offloaded that to the robots to take care of. And then last is 100% teamwork, making sure that everyone as a team is working together. You'll never run into a situation at AllSafe where someone will say, that's not my job. We're really there to all support each other and achieve success not only for us, but for our customers as well.
And I didn't mean this to be an EOS sales pitch by any means. It's just, I know EOS has worked well for us and how it's helped us scale our business and to become more focused. And I knew it was the same for you. So I wanted to just kind of talk about that a little bit, especially our core values, which are really at the center of everything that we do.
Absolutely. It's important.
So Bones, before we close, why don't you give us maybe a couple takeaways where business owners can start implementing right now?
Yeah, so I would say the number one thing you want to focus on is when you're looking at the future of your business, AI needs to be a part of that solution in the future. One, you need to make sure that you're really focusing on the problems within your business, the challenges within your business first, and not the AI solutions first.
Right.
Focus on those problems, figure out which AI solutions are going to fit into that. And you do that by doing an audit within your company. And the second part is to really try to understand what are the high impact, low cost AI solutions that you can put in place within your organization that are going to have your employees really working on those high sort of thought processes, those high level things, less busy work, so that they can really focus on what they love and what they do best. And then the third thing is really look for an expert that you can trust, right? So just, doing it yourself isn't always the right answer.
Right.
Look for a consultant, a professional services company that will be able to implement solutions to take your business to the next level.
So Bones, thank you very much for joining us in this podcast. Really great information, a lot of good takeaways, good nuggets of information for business owners. I'm going to put your contact information in the show notes below, so that way if people want to contact you for more information, they can reach out to you directly.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Aurora.
Hey, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. And if there's a topic that you want us to talk about or a subject matter expert that you want us to bring on, please leave it in the comment section below, and we'll be sure to address it in a future video.